Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So in this class, which we call the vision of the Upanishads, I have selected one small chapter from a text called Panchadashi. The handouts will be coming to you. It is a chapter called Mahavakya Vivekaha, fixing the meaning of this Mahavakya, the great sayings. What is the Mahavakya? So Mahavakya is that which reveals the identity between Jiva and Brahman. So Akhanda Bodhardakam Vakyam, Mahavakyam, that which reveals the Akhandata, that which reveals the non-division of the individual and God or Brahman is called Mahavakya. So this is the basic vision of the Upanishads. As we have been saying, that you are what you are seeking to be. The seeker and the sought are one. So that is the duality that obtains in our life, and that's the duality that really drives us, to do all the activities. And thus the problem of life is similar to the problem of the 10th man, where these 10 people were searching for the 10th man, thinking that he is lost. The problem was that while counting them, you see, the fellow who is counting is not taking himself into account. And he counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and concludes that there are only 9 people. And they conclude that the 10th boy is lost in the river, he must be drowned. And thus they keep searching for him for the whole day and naturally cannot find him, and disappointed they come back, again seated under the tree and then wondering what to do, crying as a matter of fact, how shall we go home? And then some elderly person happens to pass by and sees all these children real unhappy and asks them, what's the problem? And then one of them gets up and says that one of us is drowned or he's lost. How did we determine? Well, we counted. How did you count? So let me demonstrate. He demonstrates. He asks all his friends to line up and he counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there are 9 only. So then that gentleman says, wait a minute, the 10th man is. Oh, is he really there? Yes, he is there. So there was a great relief on the part of all these people that all right, the 10th boy is there. Some place he may be there. Maybe this old person has seen him somewhere. Where is he? All right, I'll show you. And ask him to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When this counting is done, then he is, with all expectations, looking at this elderly gentleman, where is the 10th boy? And he's told, you are the 10th boy. So, this is the vision, this is the secret of life, that the one who is searching is the one who is searching for. The seeker and the sought are one. Nobody is interested in Brahman and nobody is interested in God. Nobody is interested in anything. Understand that each one of us is interested in our own self only. In what sense? In the sense that I find myself, as you said, a needy person, an incomplete being. And therefore, I cannot accept that incompleteness about myself, and so all along I am trying to be complete. And so all the actions that are performed by me, all the endeavors in my life are just for one purpose, and that is to become complete. So that completeness, the wholeness, which is the goal in my life, which I thought is lost. Because the conclusion is that the 10th boy, I am not the 10th man. That's the conclusion. And so, seeker and the sought are separated. So when will this 10th boy find the 10th boy? He will never find it. This particular search only can be fulfilled by knowledge. If you want something else, If this boy is searching for a paper or pencil or food or McDonald's or whatever it is, then he has to go someplace. It is not that all the problems can be solved by stating that you are the 10th man. That's all right. If he is hungry, then he has to go to some place where he can appease his hunger. So certainly there are problems which require a person to do something. But this one thing, that he is seeking the 10th man, now that is a problem that can be solved only by the knowledge that I am the 10th man. And this is a problem that Vedanta addresses, because Vedanta says that is only problem in life. Others are all situations, the only problem in life is only this, that I find that what I am searching for in my life is different from me. There is a distance between the seeker and the sought. And I am born seeker and I am seeking something. And I am not finding it. And that's why there is a lot of disappointment, frustration and sorrow in our life. So all the sorrow that is there in our life can be only traced to one thing, that I am not able to find, or I do not get what I am seeking. Most of the time I am not even clear as to what I am seeking. But if you look at what it is that we are seeking, it will become very clear that each one of us is seeking to be a complete being, that we are seeking to be limitless. And I search for it everywhere. As we say, I must have searched for it in all the embodiments also. So when I depart from this body with this thought that I am incomplete, I must become complete, and I have found that human birth is not, let me try something else, then I may enter the body of a dog or a cat or an elephant, hoping that maybe that way I'll find out what I am searching for. Anyway, thus this search has been going on, and Upanishad has an answer to this. Number one, that every sorrow in our life can be traced only to this. As I was saying in the morning, we think that the problem lies outside, that somebody else is responsible for my sorrow or unhappiness. But in fact, the problem of sorrow can be traced to this one thing in our life, that I am not able to get what I am searching for. That I have a certain need and my need is not getting fulfilled. And all the efforts I have made to fulfill my need have not succeeded. And that is the cause of all the sorrow. This also we should know, that all the sorrow originates from this and not from anything else. Not because I did something and that I did not succeed, not that I wanted something that I did not get, or that I had something which I have lost. All these situations are there. You know what? When these situations make us unhappy or create sorrow in us, what they are doing is they are just touching that button, because unhappiness or sadness is always there. It's just waiting to become manifest, and any event outside can become just an occasion to touch a button, push a button, and the sorrow comes out. I feel the sorrow has come from there, but we will always discover that sorrow never comes from outside or inside, it always arises from inside only. There is no such thing as a packet of sorrow that somebody gives me. Yes, somebody insulted me, that is okay. Or somebody treated me in a manner which I look upon as an insult, okay. And then I became sorrowful, I became sad, unhappy. But as we said, the sadness is there. All that person has done is just push a button for the sadness to become manifest. If it goes away from there, doesn't matter what he pushes. As long as it is there, doesn't matter what I have. Anything can push that button. Even a little child can push that button. Anybody can push the button if the sorrow is in there, and therefore the sorrow or the sadness is there very much. As much as Anand for Swamiji, you are saying that Ananda is there. Yes, Ananda is there, but covered by this sadness. And thus, various events in the life only become instrumental in bringing to manifestation the sadness which is always waiting to become manifest. This is how Vedanta explains the basic problem of life. See, when the problem of the nature of the problem is understood, then alone the solution will become clear. We are employing, or we are in fact trying a variety of solutions to deal with this problem of sadness, but as long as the diagnosis is not proper, that is, as long as our understanding of the problem is not proper, the solution that we apply is also not going to be proper. But Swamiji, how does this Vedanta address my day-to-day problem? I go to my place of work and I have to deal with the people. I go to place of my work, I have to deal with, the way I am being treated, and my successes, my failures, my disappointments. How does Vedanta help that? Is Vedanta practical? This thing that you're talking about is fine. Is it merely intellectual exercise or is it practical in any way? This is the only thing that is practical. In what sense? In the sense that it explains the cause of sorrow and also explains the means of attainment of the happiness which I am seeking. Then all the things that happen at the place of work, they become events rather than problems. And whereas people will do what they are doing, the world will do what it is doing. It will keep on pushing the buttons. That is the role that the world has taken up. As long as I retain my buttons within myself, well, I can be sure that somebody will push them. The idea is to eliminate all those buttons, that's all. What presently I am doing is keeping those buttons intact. I rearrange the things around me. This fellow is pushing button, throw him out. This fellow is patting on my back, keep him here. Now he starts pushing button, so that's what I do not like, get rid of it. What I like, hold on to it. So holding on to something so that it doesn't get away from me, and not allowing something to come because it will come and upset me. This is it. This is my life. Raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion, they govern my life. All that is necessary is to come out of this business of being always provoked by likes and dislikes. Anyway, thus Vedanta provides the basic solution, and that is the only solution, by helping us to understand that the basic problem lies in a wrong perception that I have about myself. That I know myself all right, but I have a wrong perception of myself. And what is needed to be done is to correct my perception with the help of the teaching. And that is what Vedanta does. Vedanta gives us the perception of our life. So, in what is called Mahavakya. Mahavakya is a major statement, the great statement, although they are very short sentences. Prajnanam Brahma, a sentence of 2 words. Tattvamasi, a sentence of 3 words. Ayam Atma Brahma, a sentence of 3 words. Aham Brahmasmi, a sentence of 3 words. That's all. 2 to 3 words are there, but these are major statements, and they are the statements that have the potential of solving every problem of our life, solving the problem of sadness. Each of these has the potential of solving the problem, every problem of sadness. But will it solve the problem there of poverty and of, once I have a mind which is free from problem, then I'll find out, it will not be very difficult to solve those problems when basically my problem is solved. And so, there are many statements, there are many Upanishads, and every Upanishad will have a statement which reveals the identity between the seeker and the sought. But traditionally, 4 statements have been recognized, or 4 statements are always presented as examples of Mahavakya, or these great statements. One statement taken from each Veda. So Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sam Veda, Atharva Veda, the 4 Vedas are there. In each of these Vedas, there are Upanishads. The other day when we started a discussion on the subject matter of explaining the meaning of the word Upanishad, so we said that day that the word Upanishad itself means Brahma Vidya, the self-knowledge. And what does the self-knowledge does is, Gati Vishranam Avasadanam, it brings me to myself, it loosens the bonds of all the various complexes that I have, and ultimately it eliminates or destroys ignorance. And that is done by this capsule. This is called the Mahavakya, or the great statement. So one Mahavakya, one great statement is chosen from Rig Veda. So from an Upanishad, that is called Aitareya Upanishad, which belongs to Rig Veda, this Vakya, this statement, Prajnanam Brahma, consciousness is Brahma. The other Upanishad is the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad belonging to Yajur Veda. That the Mahavakya is Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahma. The third Veda is the Sama Veda. and one of the Upanishads belonging to Samaveda, Chandogya Upanishad. From there, this statement is taken, Tattvamasi, that thou art. And the fourth Veda is the Atharva Veda, and the Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, belonging to Atharva Veda. From there, where the statement is, Ayam Atma Brahma, this Atma is Brahma. Ayam Atma Brahma. Ayam means this Atma, this self is Brahma. So these are the four recognized major statements which are emphasized to help us contemplation. These are the statements for contemplation. Not statements to be repeated as mantras, but you can repeat the statements and not repeat merely for the sake of repeating, but let the statements help us in contemplating upon the meaning that they convey. Otherwise, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, we repeat. We repeat the name of Lord, knowing that Shiva is the name of the Lord and that it is God's name, and with devotion I repeat. So in japa or repetition of Lord's name or a formula or a mantra, the most important factor is devotion. That I look upon Shiva or Rama or Krishna as God. And thus, when I am repeating those names or those mantras, then there is this attitude of devotion in my heart. So in the mental worship or in japa, in all of that, devotion is the most important element along with the practice. Here, it is not so much devotion. There is bhavana, that there is an attitude that I look upon the name Shiva as God. That means that I am imposing the idea of godness or godhood upon this name Shiva or Rama or Krishna. So what in fact occurs in my mind is a name, Rama. But then the way I look at it is that it is God. Here, it is not looking at something as different, but it is understanding something. So if suppose I repeat this statement in my mind, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, or Prajnanam Brahma, or Soham, a very famous one. Soham, very short. Saha Aham. There is a visarga after Sa, that is Saha, that visarga becomes O by the rules of Sandhi. And A of Aham, as it is preceded by O, gets elided, and there is a Sandhi, these two words are conjoined, and there is this final expression, Soham. Although it appears like one word, in fact, there are two words involved there, Saha Aham, that I am. That Brahman I am, that God I am. So, this chapter of Panchadashi, the fifth chapter of Panchadashi is of course, a very beautiful Prakarana Grantha, or the text explaining the Siddhanta, the principle of Vedanta. In this text also, the purpose of this text also is to explain what is the subject matter of Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita and such important texts. And this particular chapter, the fifth chapter, in this chapter the author takes each of these Mahavakya, each of these great statements, and explains it in 2 verses. That's all. The whole chapter consists of only 8 verses. Shortest chapter in Panchadashi. Panchadashi is 15 chapters and total about 1500 verses. But this chapter is the shortest of them all, consisting of 8 verses. 2 verses devoted to each great statement. Now the first 2 verses explain this statement, Prajnanam Brahma, consciousness is Brahma. And that is found in the Aitareya Upanishad, which belongs to the Rig Veda. So the order in which the Vedas are looked upon is Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda. This is the order. And therefore, these 4 great statements are also taken up in this order. First, the author takes up the great statement occurring in the Rig Veda in the Upanishad called Aitareya Upanishad, and that statement is Prajnanam Brahma, consciousness is Brahma. So now you have all this handout. I'm sorry that this does not have transliteration, so those who cannot read the Devanagari won't be able to repeat that. This only the verses are only in the Devanagari. So I chant 1 quarter, you please repeat after me. येनेक्षते शृणोतीदम् येनेक्षते शृणोतीदम् जिघ्रति व्याकरोति च जिघ्रति व्याकरोति च स्वाद्वस्वादु विजानाति स्वाद्वस्वादु तत्प्रज्ञानमुदीरितम् तत्प्रज्ञानमुदीरितम्. The statement is called Prajnanam Brahma. The consciousness is Brahma. What is consciousness? So consciousness is the essence of the individual, and Brahma is the essence of the world. And that both this essence is basically one. Consciousness is the self of myself. Brahma is the self of the world or universe. And Prajnanam Brahma, this statement tells us that the self of mine is the self of the universe. That is, I am the self of the universe. That means I am the universe. I am everything. That means I am free from all limitations, I am whole, I am complete. This is what the statement means. Thank you. In the Aitareya Upanishad, it seems that some aspirants have gathered together and they are asking these questions. So an inquiry is performed. Koyamatma iti vayam upasmahe. What is it that is the self? What is within ourselves that we call self? So everybody knows that there is self, that I is that self. Which one of the two is the self? Katarhas Atma. So two things apparently claim to be myself. First question is, Koyam Atma iti vayam upasmahe. What is it that in fact we think that is a self? Or what is it that is the nature of ourselves? The word Atma means self. It is always used for Aham or the I. So Atma means I. What it is, that is the nature of I. Well, why should that question occur? I is I. He says, no, but there are two things that present themselves as I. Katarhas Atma, which of the two is the self? So within myself now there are two things. One is the subject, other is the object. One is the very agent, other is the instrument. Within myself there is an agent, what we call Aham or the I, who is the doer, the enjoyer, the speaker, the taster, the one who does all of this. Other is the instrument with which it is done, namely the mind. So talking and speaking and eating and drinking, all of this is done. So question is, which of the two is the self? Yena ikshate shrunoti idam jighrati vyakaroti cha, our verse tells us. That by which a man sees. So is it myself by which I see? Shrunoti, I hear. Jigrati, he smells. Vyakaroti, he speaks. Swadu, aswadu vijanadi. and distinguishes sweet and bitter taste. So, that by which. So, what is it because of which I am able to do this? See, this is how the inquiry proceeds, What is it because of which I am able to see? I am able to hear, I am able to talk, I am able to distinguish the different smells, distinguish different tastes. What is it because of which I am able to do this? That I see. So what is it because of which I see? Is it the eye, the faculty of sight, faculty of seeing? Is it with that I see? Because of that I see? Or what is it because of which I hear? Is it the ears, the faculty of hearing, with which I hear? Or that is how I see right now. So if you say, how do you see? With my eyes. It's eyes that see, the ears that hear, the organ of speech that speaks, and the organ of taste is that which tastes different things. The organ of smell is that which smells different things. So the question is, what is it because of which all these operations or functions take place in my body? Answer is given, tat prajnanam udiritam. That is called prajnanam, that is called the consciousness. That's very interesting. What is it because of which I see? What is it because of which I hear? What is it because of which I taste and smell and talk and do various things? On one hand, it looks as though I am able to perform all these functions because of the different faculties. That I am able to see because of the eyes, and I am able to hear because of the ears, and I am able to think because of mind, and I am able to talk because of the organ of speech, and so forth. But is it that all these different faculties or organs, are they able to perform their functions on their own, or is it because they are enlivened or supplied with consciousness by something else? The point is, do the eyes see on their own? Do the eyes themselves enjoy the light of consciousness because of which they are able to illumine their objects? So I know that with the eyes I am able to see different colors and forms. So this ability to see the colors and forms, does it belong so that I am able to perceive these colors and forms? Is it because of eyes? Or that I am able to hear different sounds? Is it because of the ears? The answer is no, that there is something else that gives the capacity to the eyes to see. There is something else that gives capacity to the ears to hear. This question was asked in the opening statement of the Upanishad. Keneshidam patati preshitam manah kena pranah prasamah praitiyuktah keneshidam vachamimam vadanti. That the aspirant or the jignasu goes to a teacher and asks him, Keneshitam padati preshitam manah. What is it because of which the mind performs its functions? The mind goes out in different objects and is able to think and perceive. So what is it because of which the mind performs its functions? Kena prana prasamah praitiyuktah. This prana, the breathing in and out, so what is it because of which the prana is able to perform? Is function of breathing in and out. Keneshitam vachamimam vadanti. What is it because of which the people are able to utter this speech? Chakshushrotram kaudevo yunakti. What is it because of which the eyes see and ears hear? This question occurred because the student sees. Of course, he must be a very contemplative one. This is a student of the Upanishad. As you say, not a student of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita begins with grief and sorrow. Upanishads generally don't begin that way. They begin with an inquiry. That means there is a much more sophisticated student here. Because we said on the very first day, the Upanishads are taught in Aranya, they are taught in forests. Where there is no Rana, where there is no battle. So Rana means a battleground, Aranya means there where there is no battle at all. That means there are no conflicts. That means that the student goes there with a mind that is devoid of any conflicts. It's a contemplative mind. Therefore, Upanishads usually are taught to the students having a contemplative mind. Those who have discovered a value of knowledge, those who do not want anything else in their life, having analyzed the various pursuits of life and having understood also one's own urge as to what it is that I am seeking in my life, Those who understood that what I am seeking is knowledge. The mind is sattvic. So when the mind becomes sattvic, then there is a desire for knowledge. As you said, when the mind is governed by rajas, then there is a desire for enjoyment. When the mind is governed by tamas, there is a desire not to do anything, withdraw. Not withdraw for contemplation, just not do anything. So the students of Upanishads enjoy sattvic mind, a mind which is predominant in sattva, and therefore there is a value for knowledge. So a student like that goes to teacher and asks this question. He understands that the mind, the prana, and all the faculties, all of these are inert. He knows that the prana, for example, is nothing but air moving up and down. Air itself cannot move up and down. There must be something that makes this air is inert. Inert things cannot themselves move. Like a chariot is inert, chariot cannot move by itself. So when a chariot is running, we can infer that there must be horses. Even if we don't see the horses, we know that there must be some conscious being that is responsible for the movement of something that is inert. When you see a bus running on the road, even if I don't see the driver, I know driver must be there. By itself the bus cannot run. Swami by itself also can run. There are all those toys, with battery operated toys, and they run by themselves. Still there is some intelligence somewhere, some conscious intelligence is there because of which they do. A conscious being must be there when we find some inert things or insentient thing. Put it this way. When we find insentient thing in motion or doing something, we know that a sentient being must be involved because of whom that insentient thing moves or performs activities. So mind is insentient. The sense organs are insentient. The prana, the life breath is insentient. And all these insentient faculties we find more functioning as though they are sentient things. Therefore, there must be something that imparts sentiency or consciousness to them. What is it? Up to this point, our inquiry can take us. Because we can feel our mind, we can feel our senses, and we can see them, and therefore, this much I can see, that even though they are performing the functions, I know that they do not have themselves the capability of doing it. And therefore, there must be something else because of which they are able to perform this function. What is it? That is where we have to go to the teacher. But there is no way that I can objectify the consciousness. I cannot objectify the self. And there also in Kona Upanishad, the teacher says, Shrotrasya Shrotram, Manasaha Manaha, Vachoha Vacham. O my disciple, what you are asking of? So what is it because of which the ears hear? Shrotrasya Shrotram, that is ear of the ear. The eye of the eye, the mind of the mind, the prana of the prana. What do you mean eye of the eye and ear of the ear and the mind of the mind? Are you trying to tell me that there is some ear behind the ear which makes this ear perform these functions? Or there is a mind behind the mind which prompts this mind to go into its objects? Or there is a vital layer behind the vital layer that pushes this up and down? Is that what you mean? No. Then why do you reply like this? How else to reply? There is only one entity which is the ear of the ear. It's not that these are all different entities. That there is something else that makes the eyes see, and something else that makes the ears hear, and something else that makes the mind think. Not there are many things. There is only one thing that makes the mind think, that makes the intellect know, that makes the eyes see, that makes the ears hear, that makes the prana breathe. Why don't you say what it is? Why don't you describe it? This cannot be described. So up to the mind, and up to the eyes, and up to the ears, up to these faculties, they are available for description. Because they are available for objectification. But then, that because of which all of these are illumined, that itself is not available for objectification, and therefore, that cannot be described in words, but that is. So there is a principle that enlivens eyes and ears and all these various faculties, because of which they will perform their functions as they do. And that is what is said here also. So an inquiry that is taken place, that is taken up in the Aitareya Upanishad also follows these lines. Yena ikshate, that by which a man sees. Idam jigrati, by which a person hears. So shrunoti, hears. Jigrati, smells. Vyakaroti, speaks. Swadu aswadu vijanati, and distinguishes the sweet and bitter taste. Tat prajnanam uditam, that is called consciousness. So thus we arrive at consciousness through the functioning of these faculties. In same Kenopanishad it is said, Pratibodha Viditam Matam. So what is the gateway of understanding this or arriving at the consciousness? Pratibodha Viditam Matam, Bodham Bodham Prati, as even a thought arises in your mind. So every thought that arises in a mind becomes a gateway to understand the consciousness. Because a thought as it arises in the mind is known to me. And it can become known to me only when it is illumined. And what is it that illumines? It is the consciousness that illumines. So even though a thought is not consciousness, but the fact that the thought is known, that shows that there is consciousness that illumines the thought. For example, when we see this flower, well, when we look at the flower, our attention is at the flower itself. But the fact that I am able to see the flower shows there is something. What is it? The light. Had the light not been there, even though the flower was there, I could not have seen it. Thus, the very fact of this flower that is being seen reveals something. It reveals what? It reveals the existence of light. Similarly also, the fact that a thought is known to me shows that that thought is illumined. Otherwise it could not have been known to me. It is illumined in the light of consciousness. What illumines that? It is consciousness that illumines. So just as this flower becomes a gateway for us to know the light, similarly also every thought also becomes a gateway to know the very witness that illumines the thought. And who is that witness? I am that witness. That consciousness, again, it is, although of course light is something different from me, but that is where the example has its limitation. Here, the light that illumines a thought, where is that light? Is that light something different from me? He says, no, I am the very light which illumines a thought. But Swamiji, I find myself different from the thought. But that is because I choose to identify myself with the aham vritti or the I thought. So I thought also is the thought. And that which illumines even that thought also is a consciousness which is devoid of these distinctions of I and you, this and that, or aham and idam, I and this. So in our mind also there are these two kinds of thoughts. One is what we call the aham vritti, meaning the I thought. Other is the idam vritti, what we call this thought. Our mind itself splits into these two. Swamiji, sometimes I find that I am watching my own mind. Who is watching the mind? One part of the mind watching the other part of the mind. Which is the part watching? That is called the kartru, that is called the subject, or that is called the agent. And it is watching the karanam, the object or the instrument part of the mind, and therefore the mind has these two primary vrittis or thoughts, aham and idam. But both are thoughts and both are illumined. Illumined by what? Illumined by consciousness, which is free from the ideas of aham and idam. Understand? The light that illumines the flower is free from the idea of flowerness. The light is devoid of the flowerness, meaning the light that illumines is devoid of any distinct characteristics, devoid of any attributes, devoid of any qualifications. So what is illumined is qualified, but that which illumines is devoid of qualification. Similarly also in my mind, all the various thoughts are illumined. Each thought is qualified in as much as each thought is different from the other thought, has a certain form. The consciousness that illumines must be the one that has no form at all. So the thought is a form, it is a characteristic, it may be an emotion, it may be a thought, it may be an action, it may be a reaction, whatever it is. This thought has many characteristics. But the consciousness that limits the thought and its characteristics must be one that is devoid of every characteristic, every attribute. And that is the aham vritti. The I thought also is there. The I thought also is the limit. And the one that limits the I thought also must be devoid of the idea of I-ness. So even though consciousness is I, but the word I also is not adequate to really describe the self. Because when we use the word I, the pronoun I, there is always an idea that this I is always thought to be different from you, meaning that I is that which excludes you. And therefore, the consciousness that eliminates I thought also must be devoid of the idea of I-ness. Which I-ness? The I that excludes the you. The consciousness cannot be excluding anything at all because it, without distinction, eliminates the subject and the object, the I and this, the knower and the thought that is known. So, tat prajnanam udiritam. That is called prajnanam, that is called consciousness. Because of which one sees, because of which one hears, because of which one thinks, because of which one does all these various functions. And that is the consciousness. And what's the nature of the consciousness? That which is devoid of any distinction. So, unconditional consciousness or attribute-free consciousness, or sometimes they call it objectless awareness. Because in consciousness or awareness also, we always think of awareness of related to something. I'm aware of a man, aware of a tree, aware of flower, and therefore, usually in awareness also, some object of awareness is always involved. And so we know awareness also as conditioned awareness. And so they say, what is the true nature of awareness? So that which is common in all this different conditioned awareness, what is the common? The unconditioned awareness. Like various ornaments. Every ornament has its own distinction, its own form, its own condition. What is gold? That which is unconditioned in all the ornaments. Similarly also, various awareness, there are various objects are there, and therefore the awareness that we know is only conditioned awareness. But the awareness that is really there is the unconditioned awareness, prajnanam. It is that prajnanam, that unconditional awareness alone that manifests itself as I thought, as this thought, as various thoughts in my mind, as memory, as knowledge, as desire, as passion, or any kind of as various feelings. So all the various thoughts that arise in my mind are nothing but this one prajnanam, one consciousness appearing as various thoughts. What is the thought? Thought is nothing but conditioned consciousness. What is an ornament? Nothing but conditioned gold. When gold, which itself is formless, assumes a form, we call it an ornament, and similarly also, the consciousness, which itself is formless or without any condition, when it assumes a certain form, it is called a thought. In Sanskrit, it is called vritti. In English, we will call it a thought or a state of mind. Tat prajnanam udiritam, that is called consciousness. So this is the truth of myself. What is that I? Or what is the essence of the I? This consciousness, unconditioned consciousness. It is called consciousness also because it is self-existing, self-revealing. So this is the inquiry pertaining to who am I? But that's not enough. What's the nature of the world around me? So that is being said in the second verse here. Chaturmukhendra deveshu manusyashvagavadishu chaitanyamekam brahmatah prajnanam brahmamayyapi. Chaturmukha, meaning Brahmaji again. Brahma. So Brahma, the creator, is said to have 4 heads, 4 faces. Why 4? Well, it said that these 4 heads of Brahma, the creator, represent 4 Vedas. Because the creator must have the knowledge of what he wants to create. And knowledge is Vedas. So Veda, as we said, the word is derived from the root Ved, which means to know. And therefore Veda means the body of knowledge. So the 4 Vedas, so the 4 heads or the 4 faces of Brahma, the creator, they stand for the 4 Vedas. So Chaturmukha, he said, one having 4 faces, or 4 faces, that is Brahma. Indra is one of the god, he is the king of all the gods. Deveshu. In short, these are the most exalted beings. So human being is in the middle of what we call organic evolution, you might say, I don't know. But there are all these gods that they talk of, who are more evolved as far as the personality is concerned. Not necessarily as far as emotional evolution is concerned. Anyway, but as far as the sophistication is concerned, the ability to derive pleasure, the sensitivity. Like for example, somebody is singing, or somebody is playing music on an instrument, and different people in the audience will enjoy that in different degrees, depending upon their sensitivity. So thing being the same, the extent of joy that we can derive out of it depends upon our own sensitivity. To an extent that you can become the sensitive to the most the most exalted, namely Brahman, then of course, that is sensitivity that we want to develop, that everything and nothing but, so strikes me as Brahman. But anyway, what we are saying is that, so these devatas are said to be more sensitive. And therefore, the intensity of the pleasure that they have is much more than the pleasure that a human being can enjoy. So they are more exalted beings in that sense, having many powers, and thus, therefore there are fewer obstacles to their enjoyment of things, whereas there are many obstacles to our enjoyment. So we can prepare good food, but my stomach may not be, in good order, the food doesn't help me. You may bring me ice cream, Swamiji, wonderful, but my throat is bad, I'm sorry, I can't eat, take it. The devatas don't have these problems, I think. Because devatas or gods are only 3 states. The birth, the youth, childhood and youth, that's all. It doesn't go to middle age and old age and death, and these other stages are not there. So I call it Tridashaha. Tridasha means having 3 avasthas, 3 states. And so anyway, devatas, whatever they are. Idea is that this most exalted beings, like sattvic beings, where sattva is predominant. These are just examples given. Manushya Ashwagavadishu. And Manushya, human beings, which are in the middle, where there is a combination of sattva, rajas and tamas. Perhaps predominance of rajas. Devatas represent the predominance of sattva, the human beings represent predominance of rajas. Ashwagavadishu, Ashwa means a horse, and Go means a cow, representing predominance of tamas. In short, the whole spectrum of all the living beings, that's the idea. So the first verse pertains to the inquiry, reference to who am I. The second verse now wants to find out what is the nature of the world. So what is the very self or the essence of the creation of the world? Manushya Ashwagavadishu, in the human beings, in the cows, in the horses, and any other things. As well as Adi, etc. includes also of the insentient things. So what is mentioned here are those sentient beings, but the universe also contains insentient things, such as chairs and tables and whatever. In all of them. Vriksha Pashanadikam, like trees, like the rocks and things like that, all of them included. Now what is the truth of them? Prajnanam Brahma. All of this is in fact Chaitanyamekam. The Chaitanya, the consciousness that there is in there in all these living beings is one alone. So the horse also has consciousness. The cow also has consciousness. The tree also has some kind of consciousness. How about the rock? I imagine the rock also must have some kind of consciousness. I don't know, some intelligence is there everywhere, because rock also behaves in an intelligent manner. That when it is dropped from the hand, it falls in an intelligent manner. Or if you bash it on your head, it will do it in an intelligent manner, whatever it is. So, that way, everything, sentient or insentient, because I've been reading this in New York, these kind of things are happening, people are just attacked with rocks and stuff like that, anyway. I don't know why that should occur to me right now, but it did. So, rock. So that intelligence is evident everywhere. So here the author says, Chaitanyam Ekam. That Chaitanyam, the intelligence, the consciousness that obtains, whether it is Brahmaji, or Indra, the most exalted beings, or these human beings, or even the lower forms of life, including the tree and the grass, and even one amoeba, even unicellular organism, up to that, the consciousness that obtains in all of them is one. Prajnanetram. So, is sarvam tat prajnanetram, prajnane pratishthitam. All of these, sthavaram and jangamam. So, sentient and insentient, whatever that is. Prajnanetram, it derives its existence from it is intelligence or consciousness. Prajnane pratishthitam, it goes back into prajna, consciousness. Prajnane trolokaha, this world shines on account of the prajna, the consciousness. Prajna pratishtha, and prajna, the consciousness alone, is that in which everything abides. Prajnanam Brahma, and therefore, so what is Brahman? Brahma is Jagat Karanam, the cause of creation. Brahman is the Atma, Jagat Atma, the self of the universe. It is both. The cause also is the self, The clay is the cause of this pot, and clay is the self of this pot. Therefore, if you want to find the cause of the self of the creation, then trace the material cause of the creation. What is the material cause of creation? What is the self of the creation? What is it from which the whole universe has arisen, by which the universe is sustained, and to which the universe goes back? What is it? Swamiji, I know, it is energy. Because that's what the scientists tell us, that from energy, the matter and energy are interchangeable, and therefore from energy the matter comes and matter goes back to energy. But what is it from which the energy also arises and is sustained and it goes back? Thus, if we search for that most fundamental principle, that is called Brahman. So Brahma is a word that is used to denote the truth of the universe. Atma is a word that is used to denote the truth of the individual, and Brahma is a word that is used to denote the truth of the world, of the universe. Brahma means big, that means limitless. So, Brahma is defined, yato vayamani bhutani jayante, that from which all these beings emerge, by which they are all sustained, unto which they merge and become one. That is Brahman. And what is that? That consciousness that we find in all the living beings. Number one, that consciousness is one. It is not that the consciousness that I am is and this is different from the consciousness that you are. Because we said the consciousness has to be one, which is free from any distinctions. Because consciousness eliminates all the distinctions. See, the light that illumines different colors and different forms must be free from the color and form. Then only it can illumine different colors and forms. Similarly also the consciousness that eliminates all the distinctions must be free from all the distinctions. And therefore the consciousness is one that is unconditional, free from distinction. Then the question is, what it is that distinguishes your consciousness from my consciousness, or consciousness that you are and consciousness that I am? What would distinguish these two consciousnesses? Inasmuch as the consciousness that I am does not possess any distinguishing features, and the consciousness that you are also does not possess any distinguishing features, Therefore, one consciousness cannot be distinguished from other consciousness, and therefore, in fact, consciousness is one alone. Only when the distinctions are there, that there is a boundary. When distinctions are not there, there is nothing that binds the consciousness, because if boundaries are also eliminated by consciousness. So how far the consciousness goes, you can think how far it goes. Whatever you think of the boundary, that boundary also is eliminated by consciousness. And therefore, consciousness is boundless, is free from distinctions, is free from any characteristics, free from any limitations. Chaitanyamekam, and therefore, that consciousness in all the beings is one alone. Although this verse only gives examples of living beings, but we have to even include all the insentient beings also, like rocks and like tables and chairs. So, is there consciousness in them also? Same consciousness is there. Swami, how can you say there is consciousness in this table? I stroke this table, it doesn't do anything, it doesn't react at all. Try to do that to me, immediate reaction will be there. Meaning, whenever we do something with a living being, there is a reaction, a conscious being. So we always understand by consciousness something that reacts. And these things do not react. Therefore, where is the consciousness? That is true. And this we have discussed a number of times, that the reason why this person reacts is because there is a subtle body here, and this, what we call table, or the insentient thing, this subtle body is not there. And therefore, the difference is in the manifestations of consciousness and not consciousness itself. Like same electricity manifests as light through the bulb, and same electricity manifests as heat through a heater. The same one manifests as cold through a refrigerator. And whereas the manifestations are many, but the one that manifests through all these various appliances is one alone. And similarly also, the manifestations are many. This poor table just is. Asti, Bhati, Priyam, all of them are there. But Asti or isness is most predominant or most manifest here, or that alone is manifest in what we call insentient things. Then when you go to a little more evolved beings, like the trees, etc., then we find not only Asti but Bhati also. Some awareness also is there. And as you go to the animals, that awareness becomes even more pronounced, and when you come to human beings, the awareness is most pronounced. Asti and Bhati. The third one, Priyam, or the Ananda or happiness. Well, this thing doesn't reflect that at all. The other living beings may reflect them in varying degrees, but the human being again reflects that also in the most exalted way. Or he can reflect that happiness also in the most exalted way. Right now he doesn't, but he can. When I prepare my mind and make my mind sattvic or pure, then it reflects that total happiness also. And therefore, that Sat Chit Ananda find their most exalted expression in human being, find a limited expression in other living beings, and find the least expression in what we call the insentient beings, but then the same Sat Chit Ananda or same consciousness is equally present in everything. Is it present in everything? It is not present in everything. It is everything. We can say the clay is present in the pot. Is the clay present in the pot? In the beginning, yes. Ultimately, what do we say? The clay is pot. Electricity is light, and that is heat, and that is cold, and that is whatever. And similarly also, the consciousness is Brahma, and consciousness is Indra, and consciousness is the human beings, and consciousness is the other living beings, and consciousness is the sentient and insentient, all the things. All that is consciousness. And so, when we thus inquire into the reality of the universe, what do we find? There also there is one reality, namely Prajnanam, consciousness. What is the reality about the individual self? Prajnanam, consciousness. What's the reality of the world? Consciousness. Prajnanam Brahman. And then the teacher says, hey, the consciousness that is you is the consciousness that is universe. There is only one consciousness. Meaning, there is no real difference between the subject and the object. There is difference at one level, namely at the level of the body or the personality, but as far as the very self is concerned, the essence is concerned, there is no distinction between you and anything else. That means that you are everything. Prajnanam Brahma. This consciousness is limitless. Consciousness is the self of all. Consciousness is the very substratum of the whole universe. Consciousness is one, and consciousness is the only thing. So in its pure form, it is that which is devoid of all distinctions. That very pure consciousness alone somehow assumes and appears as the things and beings possessing various distinctions. So how does that happen? Well, it happens. How does a consciousness that does not possess any distinctions or any characteristics at all assumes the forms possessing so many distinctions and characteristics? Like one crystal which doesn't have color assumes many colors when something is placed beside it. It appears to possess many colors, and so also the consciousness appears as all these various forms. And what there is, only one material is there, and that is consciousness. It is not that there is one consciousness, there is only consciousness. And that consciousness, I am. That you are, and that I am. That's the reality. If this is known, then we will find that every problem reduces itself to the situation. Like in the ocean, there are many waves. One wave fighting with the other one, the waves can fight. One wave is, rushing and trying to crush the other one. All this business goes on. When we are standing at the seashore, we can see this play of their waves. When the poor wave is suffering, that it is being victimized, it's whatever it is. When the wave recognizes that I am water, this fellow also is water, other chap also is water. If I look at myself from the standpoint of the water which I am, then it becomes a play. If I am a name and form, it becomes samsara. When it is water, then it becomes play. So what is the same thing? The same life, which is tremendous problem, it's difficult to handle. For an ignorant person becomes a play. For the wise person, when he recognizes that, there is one truth that informs everything. So this is how the first statement, Prajnanam Brahma, belonging to Aitareya Upanishad, coming from Rigveda, is explained. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.